உள்ளதல உள்ள உணர் உள்ளதோ உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளலற உள்ளத்தே உள்ளதான் உள்ளமெனும் உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளலெவன் உள்ளத்தே உள்ளபடி உள்ளதே உள்ளலுணர்வாயே. Namo Ramana. A warm welcome to all of you to this, the beginning of discussions on Ulladu Narpadu of Bhagavan. As you may recall, the journey started about almost 2 years ago. By Bhagavan's grace, we had gone through the verses in Ulladu Narpadu. Then we continued on to Ulladu Narpadu Anubandham. And as is usually felt in the disciples' circle of Bhagavan, that after completing the Anubandham, one comes back to Ulladu Narpadu, and that was suggested by our president, Dr. Shardaka. And it is in that spirit that we are commencing our learning, discussion, manana, nididhyasana, the meditation and the practice of the teachings contained in Ulladu Narpadu. Last week, when we were having the Kannada Satsang on Sunday, there was an episode of Skanda. There is this Kartikeya, the son of Parvati and Parameshwara, the brother of Ganapati, about whom the episode was. It was a very brief episode, and as usual, there was a run-in, a description given by our Satsangi, Umaji, and then the episode started, where Skanda was seated in the lap of, quite appropriately, Umaji, Parvati Ma, and he was asking, why do people go through troubles? Why do good people undergo troubles? And the mother of the whole of creation, she responds that each person, each jiva has to undergo the results of their action, and these troubles are nothing but the results of what they have done before. And of course, Bhagavan has answered questions put in this direction, that if one effort can give one result, then the effort in the present moment can remove the results or problems created previously. In that direction, Bhagavan has given quite a few answers of Karma Yoga in the talks with Sri Ramana Maharishi and in the other works. Now, Subramanya Swami, Kartikeya, Muruga, he is not quite satisfied with that answer, and he is said to have gone to Satyaloka in search of an answer that suits him and his state of mind. He was not very comfortable with the answer. That was the episode. Now, our journey through the investigations in the karma, bhakti, yoga and jnana And now, even within jnana, when we have gone through one period of about 50 weeks or 40 weeks, in which we have gone through the discussion of Ulladu Narpadu, and then yet another 40-45 weeks, almost another year because of the gaps. Then we discussed the teachings in Ulladu Narpadu Anubandham, and we are back to Ulladu Narpadu again. So I'm not going to presume like a book that I am talking to those who do not know anything about Bhagavan's teachings or anything about the Vichara Marga. There is going to be some intuitive assumption that there is some understanding of Bhagavan's teachings and the Ulladu Narpadu and Anubandham, and then we get back to discussing the Anubandham, the Ulladu Narpadu again. So in this round or in this period of taking up the verses from Ulladu Narpadu, there may be some intuitive assumption from my side that the listeners and the questioners and those who are going to put up some notes in the group, they are aware of these teachings. But wherever you feel that there has been a little bit of extra and gap that has occurred in the discussion, you can always ask in this group or in the WhatsApp group, and as the time permits, we can answer those either in the program here or in the WhatsApp group as it would be appropriate and permitting. Now, before we go into Bhagavan's holy work of Ulladu Narpadu, we see some basic concept in the light of self-inquiry. In the light of self-inquiry, this is perhaps one indication of how I will take it that there is some knowledge of Bhagavan's teachings, but I will try to explain whatever I am taking as concepts, and you can put it in the notes here if you want me to stop, and if the flow permits, I will stop, or I can address it in the WhatsApp group. Now, one of the first things I want to take up as a concept before going into the first verse probably in the next week, is that the relationship between one of the concepts in the first verse, the first Mangala Shloka, called Ulladu Narpadu, and the path of self-inquiry that we have been practicing for 10 minutes at least in each of these sessions for the last 2 years. So we get a feel into that. Why this discussion to begin with is that in our discussions predominantly in the last 2 years, there has been a lot of fragrance of the Bhakti Marga. There has been a lot of fragrance of putting the load on God, taking the availability of grace, and talking in terms of not having doership. Now, as we go into the practice of Atma Vicharam, we will find that the intent of the teachings is to put more self-responsibility on the sadhaka to dig in, to use the light of consciousness to find the source. So, internally, one thing should be clear that this is not to talk the Bhakti Marga down or anything like that. We know that we don't want to do that, and we have taken immense benefit of that ladder. But As Bhagavan says, surrender on the outside and vichara within. When we dig into that, when we go into that teaching of Bhagavan, that while talking to the Vyavahara world, while talking to the Bhakti Satsangis, even while talking to the Jnana Marga Satsangis, while using the outside discussions, we can lace it almost totally with surrender to Bhagavan. But internally, in sadhana, Bhagavan is saying, don't use the excuse of putting the load or blame on Bhagavan or grace. Do vichara within. And this particular point is my intent in focusing on this relationship between the practice of self-inquiry and one of the primary concepts in the first invocatory verse called Ulla Unarvu. So that is the intent, that the journey of 2 years is now going to take us inward in such a way that the dissipation of energies that we do in our inner journey by way of putting the load on others, even if that other may be Bhagavan or grace of God, then there is a dissipation that we don't want to take the responsibility to go in and do the sadhana where the unitary source is to be found. So in that direction, let us take this particular topic at hand as an introductory discussion to our whole the series of discussions we are going to have, that what is the connection between the practice of self-inquiry and not directly the Ulla Purul, but Ulla Unarvu. We can recall that the first invocatory verse starts like this. Ulladala, Ulla Unarvu, Ulladu. Ulladala, Ulla Unarvu, Ulladu. Now, we are not going to take the Ulla Purul. Ulla Purul is the being, the Sat. Ulla Unarvu is awareness of being. The consciousness existence or existence consciousness. The Irundu Olir, as Bhagavan calls that as Irundu Olir. Or it is the Spurana, it is the I, or it is the I am. What is this Ulla Unarvu? And what is this practice of self-inquiry? To begin with the practice of self-inquiry, Bhagavan says to Gambiram Seshaya, keep the body almost as if it is a corpse, incapable of giving us any jnana, incapable of knowing anything. Keep it as still as a corpse, and with a keen mind, without even uttering the word I, see what it is that raises as the I. See what it is that raises as the I. Then of course he says, then there will rise from within a continuous feeling of I. And the teaching goes on in the work self-inquiry. And in the work Who Am I? The teaching is that let how many ever thoughts arise, how does it matter how many thoughts arise? But as each thought arises, with great diligence, inquire for whom has this thought arisen. The answer will come. This thought has arisen for me, immediately hold who am I. The mind will return to the source from which it rose, and the thought that arose will become quiescent. The thought that arose will fall quiet. This is the self-inquiry teaching in Who Am I? Later on, of course, in the same paragraph, he says that as the inward practice is continued, there will arise the spurana of its own accord. That's how that paragraph ends. But my putting of light is restricted to the sadhana of the other thought and the I thought. What is Bhagavan asking us to do there? And what is its connection with Ulla Unarvu? Now, if one may recall that we had started the discussions last time with the Sanskrit verses, that is the translation from Ganapati Muni of Bhagavan's Ulladu Narpadu. Now, in the translation of the Ulladu Narpadu, the invocatory verse, the word used is Satpratyaya Kimnu Vihaya Santam. And in Tamil it is Ulladala Ulla Unarvu Ulladu. So here the key is for us to find out that Bhagavan is teaching of Eka Vastu, that is, finally the Sadvastu is Advitiya. He is going to be alone without a second. Now, what is this Ulla Unarvu? Is it referring to many Ulla Unarvus or is it referring to one? And that is what we are going to see in this discussion, so that there is a clarity in practice right through the Ulladu Narpadu discussion, that we have this underlying knowledge of that there is one Ulla Unarvu is what we are going to see. That what is it that Bhagavan asks us to do in the practice of self-inquiry is that, of course, in the discussion, in the teaching to Gambiram Seshayar, Bhagavan puts aside the sensory body and the sensory world as anything to do with Atma Vicharam. Both the sensory body and the sensory world about which it can bring in data are quietened. And one has to seek from within what is it that rises as the I from within us. Now, what are the two things that are available in our inner journey? There is the other thought and there is the I thought. In the first teaching, the other thought is not given any place. Directly one is asked to hold the I and seek from where the I thought arises. In Who Am I, there is a place for observing and letting go of the other thought. And there is holding of the source of the I thought. From this, we understand that the second teaching to Sivaprakasham Pillai and through him to us allows for the Ulla Unarvu of the other thought. That he does not say that the other thought does not exist. Ulla Unarvu means knowledge of existence or awareness of existence. But is Bhagavan asking us to give any credence even in the second teaching to the awareness of the existence of the other? No, because his teaching prior to the teaching of the practice in the answer number 10 or 11, the prior to that he would have said that only after the I thought arises, all other thoughts arise, and all other thoughts exist along with the subsisting existence of I thought, And when the I thought subsides in sleep, all other thoughts to go away or subside. Therefore, vidya aham manaha, the what is this mind? That which rises as I thought from within the body, that is the mind, says Bhagavan. That means the ulla unarvu of the other is not is not asked to, one is not asked to follow, one is asked to let go of that. And why that is done? Because that something else is there arises only after the arising of the I thought. Therefore, the ulla unarvu, when you hold of the I thought, the all other things existing take their support from this source. So this source which Bhagavan is asking us to hold, the holding of the source of I thought, to Gambiram Seshayar directly, and to Siva Prakasham Pillai, and to us in practice of Who Am I, by letting go of the existence of the other thought and asking for whom, then go to the I thought and go to its source. That means go to the ulla unarvu of yourself. Whoever is the listener in this group, we may be feeling that we are all discussing, either speaking or listening about self-inquiry, about Ulladu Narpadu, and there are about, let's say, 20 others in the group. 20 others are listening to this discussion. Now, the 20 others are listening. That thought is for whom, if we ask, each one of us will get, that is for me. So when we ask, who am I? We go to that ulla unarvu, which is the adhara, which is the support, which is the source of not only the sadhaka who began as separate Nandakumar, but also the source of all beings. Because all beings can be looked at as other, and all beings arise only after the rising of the ulla unarvu of the I thought. So, by asking us to hold the ulla unarvu, as Akka had suggested in her previous, either the last one or previous talk after the discussion, that what Bhagavan is asking us to hold is like the smell of the sense of smell that the dog has. Nyamaliyil keda nanen urudiyai nadinin uruvel Arunachala. So in that bhakti work of Aksharamanamali, Bhagavan gives this input to us, that how is self-inquiry done? What is the smell, what is the fragrance of Arunachala? In Ashtakam, Bhagavan directly gives us who is Arunachala. Irundulir unaividu taduttidal devam இருட்டினை விளக்கெடு தடுத்திடலே கான் இருந்தொழில் உனை அறிவுறுத்திடற்கென்றே இருந்தனை மதந்தொரும் விதவித உருவாய் இருந்தொழில் உனை அறிகிலரெனில் அன்னோர் இரவியின் அறிவரும் குருடரே ஆவார் இருந்தொழில் இரண்டர எனதுளத்தொன்றாய் இணையரும் அருணமா மலையனும் மணியே. Bhagavan says that Arunachala, the Ishvara, is the ulla unarvu. Existence, awareness, awareness, existence. That is where Bhagavan is asking us to go in self-inquiry. The one ulla unarvu behind all existences. Now, what is this ulla unarvu? That something exists and something I exist. Both these are lit up by a light. light. Both my existence and the existence of all other beings is lit up by one light. Now, how to hold that light? I can always say, I am going somewhere and I am having a symbol of God and I am reminded, I remember and I meditate on God. But the invocatory verse wants us to practically, actually, really do that. Really meditate on the Ullapurul. That is the purpose, or that is the intent of this verse. Not merely give us a symbolic goal which we may reach at a later time. Now, this Ulla Unarvu, coming back, is that when we discuss this, that Bhagavan is asking us to hold the Ulla Unarvu of that person itself. Why is that? Because the whole underlying Ulla Unarvu, which gives the existence for all beings. In later time, we will be seeing, quite paradoxically to the statement I am making, that is there time or is there place without the Ulla Unarvu, without the feeling that you exist. Now, that will be one of the statements we will be coming across from one of the verses, that the whole of time and the whole of concept called space and place is dependent on the rise of the I, the Ulla Unarvu of the I. So the blanket Ulla Unarvu, which is the light that lights up all the beings, Sat Pratyaya, if there are many beings, all that is lit up by one Ulla Unarvu, and Bhagavan wants us to hold that one Ulla Unarvu by giving us this most scientific fact, most clear logical fact, that all other beings they arise only after the rise of the I thought. Now, is it the I thought that Nandakumar started his enquiry with in, let us say, 2004? Now, that I thought starts digging into itself and it starts removing some of the attachment to the unreality and starts moving towards that which is within it as reality. And it understands that it never was that which it had identified with. What do I mean by that? That Bhagavan is asked in the talks by one of the Swamijis from Ramakrishna Mission, that were you not there up the hill, and was there not a time when you went to the shrine in Madurai and prayed to God, prayed to Shiva, that you also be made as one of the great saints, one of the 63 saints, those who are described in the Periya Puranam? Did you not want to be one of them? The pointer in that was that did you also not have Ajnana before, and then did you not come to Jnana? He did not refer to his days in Tiruchuli and all that, but the purpose was that did you not go through the phase of Ajnana and then come to Jnana? Is there not the existence of these two selves? That there is a self which is bound and in Ajnana, and then it makes the journey for which you are now describing the path, and then it comes to the self. At least this much do you not agree? Asks the saint from, or the questioner from Ramakrishna Mission. And Bhagavan replies, if there is a division as Jnana and Ajnana, they have the same reality. Meaning what? Meaning that the moment you come to the Ulla Unarvu and the source of Ulla Unarvu, which is what is the first invocatory verse going to point to us, there, at that point, all these existences that I had a period where I was doing sadhana like this, And then I came to this light. All those thoughts, the existence of those thoughts, existence of those states, all that get absorbed in the source of the I. That means this Purana consumes the path. For the path, there should be a sadhaka, there should be a goal, there should be the sadhana. But for the Ulla Unarvu, to which Bhagavan is asking us to go in self-inquiry, the whole path is consumed. There is no feeling that there was a time when there was Ajnana, and there was a time when by Bhagavan's grace, see the pointer there, that the moment you pass it a journey, you will have to decide whether it is by your own effort or by Bhagavan's grace that you came upon self-inquiry. And in all right humility and in all right truth, you will come to understand that it can never be claimed that it is by your stint, by the jiva stint of effort that self-inquiry came. You will have to say that it is by Bhagavan's grace that the self-inquiry came upon you, and then how you were saved has to be described. If you have any kind of logic and if you can have any kind of understanding of how small the jiva is and how great the combination of the consciousness is and how great the Ishvara is, we will have to concede and naturally be describing our journey as by God's grace I could come, because the moment you look, there are so many holes in each moment. In each moment, there are thousands of thoughts which could have come and you could have gone away in any of them. But somehow you have continued in sadhana and you have come to this point where self-inquiry is bringing you to culmination. How do you say if there are two parts that you had a journey and you have reached the self, you will have to concede that it is God's grace that now the Jnana Marga does not want us to take even that support, though it is very much there in duality. It doesn't want us to take even that support where internally. In action, in discussion, in talking to another, we may have that and we should have that. But internally, if you have that, that can mean dissipation of energy. You can become lazy in vichara. You can blame God for some events in the mind and get away with vichara, not doing vichara. For that particular point, having come to this point in our journey, we should make it clear that there is no journey. The journey itself is going to be absorbed in the self. There is no need to explain whether the other was bigger than you and blessed you, or whether you were the consciousness that continued the journey. There is no need to explain that point. One has to simply continue. For whom did Bhagavan give me this blessing of self-inquiry, or did I come upon it? For whom is this thought? We have to continue that and not go either way and not fall into the arguments in the outer world, because in the outer world it is always surrender to Bhagavan, surrender to grace, in duality. Always remember that. But internally, which is what we are focusing in this particular discussion, that it should be vichara, vichara, vichara. That for whom is this thought? There is only one Ulladu Narpadu. What was felt as Bhagavan's grace outside is the Ulladu Narpadu within, which is at the source of all beings. By asking us to go and hold the Ulladu Narpadu of I thought, Bhagavan is taking us to the Ulladu Narpadu of all beings. Bhagavan is taking us to Bhagavan as Ishvara. He is taking us to Arunachala as Irundolir. Who is Arunachala? Arunachala is that Ulladu Narpadu. Arunachala is the Ulladu Narpadu, which is the thread that ties all the beings which are involved in the Triputi of knower, knowing, known. That knower, knowing, known is now removed and absorbed in the unbroken strand, the unbroken thread of Ulladu Narpadu. Ulladu Narpadu is I. This Purana, which has consumed the three, Jagat, aham para spurati me trayam, says Ganapati Muni in Chatvarimshat. Chatvarimshat is of course the praise of Bhagavan as Skanda, and from that Skanda, Bhagavan asks us to hold him as the Ulla Unarvu within, as the existence consciousness, where Skanda and Arunachala are one and the same. All their existences are in that Ulla Unarvu. We call that he appears as Skanda for us to bless us, as Arunachala for us to bless us. But in self-inquiry, he wants us to hold it as one, the Ulla Unarvu behind all other thoughts and the I thought. But the practice is not to go behind the other thoughts. We should ask whenever another thought arises, it may be of another person, it may be of knowing something, it may be of ignorance of something, it may be about fate, it may be about free will, it may be about the whole of time, whole of space. Relentlessly, one has to ask, for whom is this thought? The answer will come, this thought is for me. The awareness of the existence of that thought depends on the awareness of existence of yourself. So Bhagavan says, hold the awareness of existence of yourself. About this, we had a small discussion in our home satsang here, where my mother is there. She is about 85, 86 years, 87 years old. And we have a very committed attendant, Sweta from Tirunamalai, and she's taking care of Amma. And I had taken Ulladu Narpadu so that I could discuss the Ulladu Narpadu before our discussions are on. And it was a free-flowing, intuitive, just sharing. And Sweta, the attendant, had just gone to her home, and the parents were not doing so well. So she had been worried for the past 2 weeks that she had spent after coming back from Tirunamalai. My mother had constantly been thinking of my elder brother, who was taking care of her very well in the last 15-20 years. And she is with us here since last October. So she usually used to think of him and how he used to care for her and all that. And I had taken the Ulladu Narpadu book of with the notes of Sivaprakash Pillai. So I just started the discussion by saying, see, Sweta could have a thought, how is my father and mother, how are they doing? And my mother could have a thought, where is Giripa, what is he doing? And I am also having this thought that, can I have a discussion about Ulladu Narpadu so that we get to look at what Bhagavan's teaching is there practically. Then I said, we could have these three thoughts, but the existence, the awareness of existence of that thought depends on my own iruvike, my own Ulla Unarvu. So Bhagavan is asking, Nirkiya, are you there? Then only the other comes into existence. So I was asking to Shweta, Amma and myself, the three of us may have three different thoughts. But the moment we ask for whom is this thought, we are coming to the basic feeling, Nanirikken. The Ulla Unarvu I have within myself. So Bhagavan is not asking us to believe in grace or God or some other outside support. He is asking us only to hold, are you there or not? Yes, Shweta felt she is there, Amma felt she is there, and I, of course, felt I am there. So the moment all the three of us asked, for whom is this other thought? The answer came, it is for me. And then in the discussion we found, this is the same Ulla Unarvu Shweta's parents have wherever they are. The lizard on the wall has, because it also tries to avoid some danger and go towards food. And it is the same Ulla Unarvu Giripa will have wherever he is. It is the same Ulla Unarvu that every living being, every being has. So what Bhagavan is asking, where is he taking us? By asking us to hold, for whom is this thought of worry of parents, of worry of where my brother would have gone, to which world he would have gone. Has he gone through the eyes, through the nose, or through some other part, so that accordingly he would have gone to a higher world or a lower world. What can we do for them, for him? That may be the thought of mother. Now, the moment the I go and hold the I thought, the Ulla Unarvu, do I exist? Then all the differences between the various thoughts, they go off. And Shweta also gets the same Ulla Unarvu. Amma also same Ulla Unarvu. Me also same Ulla Unarvu. That is the one Ulla Unarvu behind all beings. This does two things. That Shweta can understand that this Ulla Unarvu is already in her mother and father. Amma can understand that this Ulla Unarvu, which we are all having, is already in Giripad. This Ulla Unarvu, which has slowly given us the thoughts, which has taken us towards it in self-inquiry, is present in every jiva. Is present in the one they are worried about. Is present in the one they feel they have to do something to take care. It is present in them and it is guiding them. It is releasing the thoughts as it has brought us slowly towards it. It is bringing every jiva towards it. And Bhagavan is asking, hold that. Hold the Ulla Unarvu. So the worry about the other thought, the care about the one who has passed away, the worry about whether Ulladu Narpadu can be discussed or not, all get subsided in the one Ulla Unarvu. That is where self-inquiry brings us to the one Ulla Unarvu, which is the Adhara for everything. But it has this awareness of existence. And Bhagavan asks, can there be this awareness of existence, which is actually meditation on the existence, without something that which exists, without the Ulla Purul, or apart from the Ulla Purul? There are these two discussions which we are going to have. We have not yet entered into the verse proper. I just wanted to put some light on this Ulla Unarvu and what it actually means in practice when we do Atma Ucharam, so that we relate to the first verse and the subsequent discussions in the other verses appropriately, having done the discussions over the last 2 years. If there are any questions about this, I can take it for the next 3 minutes. Otherwise, we can sit for practice. Okay, we'll start the practice. We'll sit for the practice of Atma Ucharam. We are, of course, keeping the body still. And when some other thought arises, when there is an awareness of the other thought, one should not try to follow that with other thoughts, more thoughts, but should diligently inquire, for whom has this thought arisen? The answer will be, for me. Then that who am I takes to the source of one's own Ulla Unarvu, the Ulla Unarvu of the I. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit in this practice for the next 10 minutes. Namo Ramana. Namo Ramanaka.
Namo Ramana, sir. Prostrations to Ramana, who shines as the self in all beings, is what I say at the beginning of every satsang. Now, as it was beautifully pointed out to us, I'm saying, as I say at the beginning of every satsang. All the beings don't say it, I say it. And I perceive all the beings, or I may not perceive all the beings. I say it because I refer to Bhagavan's answer to a question as to who are you, Ramana? And a variety of beings are referred to in that question by the devotee. Are you Hari, or are you Shiva, or are you Subramanya, or are you Vararuchi? Who are you? Then Bhagavan answers, Arunachala Ramana is the consciousness shining in the hearts of all beings, beginning from Hari. So that's the answer to the question. It is nonetheless, it does not matter, as was beautifully pointed out to us, the many beings exist for each one of us. And even if we see ourselves as many beings, as in some cases of, we actually do it in many ways. We see ourselves as many beings in terms of the roles we play. We see ourselves as many beings in terms of time frames. We say, oh, that Sharda went long back, she's not there. Many people make such references. So we do see ourselves as many beings. But there may be even a psychological condition which is called multiple personality or a split personality, where a person actually does not see themselves as multiple beings, but behaves in multiple ways. Even in that condition, ultimately, how is the problem solved? The problem is solved by bringing that person to get back to the most powerful among those multiple identities. Take that as the basis for the other identities. Take the other identities as aberrations and bring it back to the single unified existence. And it is always said that if there is a clear, it is a very strange thing, that if there is a clear identity, I remember reading in one of the, I do not remember whose, one of the sadhus had mentioned that a person with a clear unified identity can easily transcend that identity or drop that identity than a person with a weak and diffuse identity, because there the dark areas are not known at all. So the same, continuing the same logic, if one comes to a single, the understanding that there is only one single person who is experiencing even apparently the multiple existences. And this example is often shared by us in our satsangs of the dream, and how the dream was, there's a devotee called Raghavendra who shared his dream with his cousin Dilip. And Raghavendra told Dilip, you and I, in my dream, we went on a drive and we reached the ashram of a Swamiji. And that Swamiji started speaking in Sanskrit. And I told him, Swamiji, I do not know Sanskrit. And then you started conversing with the Swamiji in Sanskrit. And then I woke up. And then the question came to me that in my dream, I went, myself, Dilip, and both of us, we went to a Swamiji who was speaking in Sanskrit. That was in my dream. It was not in the Swamiji's dream, it was not in Dilip's dream, it was in my dream, which means there was nobody else in my dream. Dilip was also not there, the Swamiji also was not there. Who was there? Only I was there. That means I must have been the Swamiji, I must have been Dilip. That is the case in our dream. There's no other entity. We can easily understand the single entity concept when we look at our dream. And he said, that means the person who spoke Sanskrit was also me. And the person who said, I don't know Sanskrit, was also me. And it is so clear when we look at our dream experience and when we look at our lives, we see the degree to which we are fragmented. To that degree, our sorrows are higher. There are conflicts. There are many conflicts. So even in our earlier many bhakti-oriented satsangs, Nandakumarji has pointed out the importance of holding on to one object of bhakti, single object of bhakti, and applying that bhakti to every experience of ours. If we hold any logic also, the logic must be held to the last point. That's what Bhagavan does. So he says, ask for whom? Ask for whom? So that question is it is never given up. It is just held on to. Again and again, no matter what arises, no matter what duality arises, that same question. Or if it is Vansama, also that same question. So who is the one who is, from where is this I arising to say all this? Is it an independent entity to say all this? So that is one point. Then of course, the who am I has the focus. It is said in the bhakti of whence am I, there is I and there is my source. But in who am I, there is nothing as such is posited. But there is a subtle faith in the fact that I am. That cannot be denied. The faith in the fact that I am, I cannot say I am not. I can ask who am I, but I cannot say I am not. If I were to say it also, that would just be a meaningless statement because I would be making that statement. Either I can become non-existent, or if I say anything at all, I have to be existent. So that existence, the faith in the existence is there. But the nature of the existence is not assumed to be this or that. In who am I? It is not assumed to be anything whatsoever. And there is an absolutely, we heard Nandakumarji reading from Professor K. Swaminathan, the tentativeness. There is an absolute tentativeness in who am I. And the responsibility to hold on to this tentativeness was a very, very important point which was brought up by Nandakumarji today. He says that if we say there is another Shakti, we may at some point or the other lay the blame on that Shakti for not doing something. This is a very interesting point because a friend in this journey, he brought up this point. I just mentioned for something, this happened by Bhagwan's grace. He says, you keep on frequently saying this happened by Bhagwan's grace, that happened by Bhagwan's grace. Grace is constant. Do you agree that grace is constant? It is all-enveloping. Everything happens by Bhagwan's grace. Then why do you keep on saying it? If you believe that everything is Bhagwan's grace, then there is no need to keep on saying this happened by Bhagwan's grace, that happened by Bhagwan's grace, because it is a given. So what is the area we are supposed to be talking about? If there is anything for you and me to do in this problem, to solve this problem, whatever has arisen, this something administrative issue has come up. If there is something that you and I have to do, let's talk. What are we saying? Is happening by grace, not happening? Grace is always there. So if you have faith in grace, grace is always there. Dilip also would say, since grace is always there, if at all anything is lacking, is only our effort. And again, the dichotomy happens. If the dichotomy doesn't happen, it is fine to say that everything is by grace. If I say I will make an effort in A direction, but in B direction it must be done by grace, then there is a problem. Again, Nandakumarji used to say, if I want to go to a restaurant and buy myself something tasty, which I like, some dosa or whatever it is, if I can make an effort to do that, if I can even make an effort to say that Grace has not done something, forget about going to a restaurant. If I am in a position to declare something about Grace, then I have to own responsibility, because I am declaring Grace is doing or not doing. Grace is not saying, I am saying that. So when I make a judgment, then I have to own responsibility. And who am I is entirely about owning responsibility. Right in the first place, it's about owning responsibility for our thoughts. Because very often we tend to think thoughts come, we can't help it. So the first thing that Bhagavan wants us to do in the process of self-inquiry is to accept the responsibility for our thoughts. They are my thoughts. They're not somebody else's thoughts. And they are arising, and he will tell us further, here also in this first verse also, if at all multiple experiences are there, it is only on account of my awareness of those multiple experiences. By my giving attention to that, only when the I arises, everything else arises. This Bhagavan repeats this again and again. He explains this to us. So the responsibility for my thoughts, the responsibility for any even single thought is mine. This is what happens in self-inquiry. Since it is my responsibility, it becomes my responsibility to question and find out who am I also. And I will conclude with the memory of Ganesh and Anna, who was struggling, and it is very natural to struggle. It is very natural to feel, why can't Bhagavan do something about this? Many devotees have asked him. Many great ones have asked him. Many surrendered ones have asked him. We cannot even judge them. They're great devotees have asked, Bhagavan, why are you not doing something? You are all powerful. Why don't you do something? Why don't you help me? You know I'm struggling. You know I'm struggling. Why don't you do something about this? See, this is what it's quite natural to feel that it is in Bhagavan's power to do it. And it doesn't seem to be in our power because we are struggling. Whether we have struggled enough or not is an independent question. We won't go into that now. But there are beautiful episodes and stories about that as well. What is struggling enough? But then coming back to this, we do feel that. So Ganesh and Anna was feeling great anguish about his own practice. And he again was meditating on Bhagavan's Atma Vidya Kirtanam. Bhagavan says, get back to the self. Self alone self is bliss. Everything he says. Then in the last stanza, he says, Arulum Vedume. Grace also is needed. Anyway, he has not said Arul Vedume, he said Arulum Vedume. Bhagavan never compromises. When Devaraj Mudaya asks, so you must also put in the effort, grace will work. You must put in the effort. He has never compromised on that. He has never told anyone you need not put in the effort. Never has he said that. But he has said there, Arulum Vedume. So Ganesh and Anna felt very excited about it. He said, okay, this has to be done by grace. I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry. This has to be done by grace. And he ran to Muruganar Swami, who was his confidant. And he told Muruganar Swami, Swami, it is written here, Arulum Vedume. Bhagavan himself has said this about our struggle in self-inquiry. He did not. He said, Bhagavan has to help us out. And he says, never had Muruganar Swami been so stern. He told him, Idella veru escapism. Idella veru escapism. Nee padradha nee padindru. He said, he was so stern. He said, this is escapism. You do your job. Forget about whether grace is needed or not. You do your inquiry. Don't go around saying grace has to come, grace has to do the work. And Muruganar Swami told me also the same thing when I was a girl of 13. He said, "Nee Bhagavan, put your full faith in Bhagavan and keep on doing. நீ பகவான் மேல முழு நம்பிக்கை வச்சு பண்ணிண்டே இரு. பண்ணிண்டே இரு. Whatever you are doing." He didn't question me whether I was practicing it right or wrong. I told him I want to do self-inquiry. He said, keep on doing it. That's it. Keep on doing it. Have faith in Bhagavan. Have complete faith in Bhagavan. But keep on doing. So the acceptance of responsibility is certainly a very, very significant point. And since this is a work for practice, Kumarji also told us today, this is a work for practice. It is to be practiced. What is practice if it is not by effort by us? So there is this role of effort for effort. And then, of course, we will understand. And anybody who makes even the smallest effort in self-inquiry is bound to understand that that effort had become possible only by grace. The moment self-inquiry is done, it reveals that everything, including self-inquiry, is truly happening by grace. And it happens much more when one does self-inquiry. The connection to grace is very mystically there with self-inquiry. In proportion to the self-inquiry done, the connectivity with grace is certainly felt. There is no doubt about it. It is the experience of all devotees of Bhagavan that it is so. It is then, of course, in the bhakti, as Nandakumarji said, in proportion to the degree of surrender, that grace will be felt, because self-inquiry is surrender. So self-inquiry has to be practiced, and there is no compromise on that. And very sweetly, many beautiful points came today. He said, as you practice, you will understand. You will understand that it is the I that is responsible, and you will understand further that the I is not responsible. Truly understand. See, not as a thought that grace should be there or should not be there, but from the Anubhava, only through inquiry, we can understand that actually there is no I. There is no separate entity, as the Great One says, Bhagavan says. But how will we understand unless we hold on to the ulla unarvu, as he says? That is the first. We can only hold to the ulla unarvu. That has to automatically reveal ulla purul. We can't hold. Ulla purul cannot be held. So ulla unarvu, the effort to hold the ulla unarvu, let us all make it. And I cannot resist saying that it will happen by the grace. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramanaka. Namo Ramana to all. I request Revathi to include in the group. There is a WhatsApp group, so that I can, if there are any exchanges to be made, you can make it in the group.
Yes, sir. If anyone wants to be added to the group, who is not already in the group, they can share their WhatsApp number here in this meet. If they just give the message, then in case they want to be added in the